So the Buddha talked about 10 worlds or 10 conditions that we can choose to live in at any given moment. And he outlined 31 planes of conditioned existence within samsara. And samsara is the rounds of rebirth linking consciousness. And as real destinations for there to be a living appearance. But he also, and we know that he was speaking of literal realms, literal worlds, lokas, because he spoke of where he was before he made an appearance in this world. And he was in Tushita heaven. And he went, and after his mother passed, for 3 months he ministered to her. So there are different worlds according to the ripening of karma, so that there is an appearance in those worlds. And the reason why this is important is because there is a truth runs on a scale. So there's a relative truth, there's an immediate truth that can be immediately apprehended and useful in the present moment. There's an ultimate truth. And so you have to know what kind of truth is being spoken of. And in these ways, he was talking about literal realms, but also what precedes the literal realms are our mental realms, because mind is chief. Mind made are we. He said, whatever we think and ponder on, that becomes the inclination of our mind. So if the mind is constantly leaning in a certain direction with certain thoughts, those thoughts will continue to proliferate and always come up for you. Then when you decide, well, I don't want to think like that, too late, the mind automatically leans in that direction and those thoughts come up. Now the thoughts are bothering you, because you don't want to have them anymore. But it's because of the habitual tendency of leaning the mind in that way, of entertaining those thoughts. And so it's just like the sympathetic nervous system steps in to program things for us. That's why we don't have to learn how to redrive every time we get in a car. So there's this programming that goes on. We're marvelously made. Honestly, this body mechanism, it is truly marvelous. And so it remembers, this is not just stored in the brain, but it's stored in every cell of the body. And so when we get there, we can automatically drive without even thinking about it. And so he was pointing us to the importance then of training the mind so that the mind will incline in the direction that you want it to go. So at that time that you're wanting to overlook someone's fault, like you really want to, but it just can't. You just can't do it. That self rises up in a certain way. And so we acknowledge, first of all, we're not frustrated with ourselves because we understand how this thing works. Second, we are committed or dedicated to making progress, so we look at it and we own it, And then the third thing is that we try again. And we just keep going again and again. And then one day, it really happens, and it can, and sometimes we don't, it's so subtle that we don't even notice it because we're gradually changing and we don't even recognize the change. Other people see it. We don't see it because we know how we have been. We know how we have thought, but somebody come along and they say, you're so different. You say, I am? And say, yeah, or you get with somebody that you would just like, because, birds of a feather. So, and then you look at their behavior and it's like, it's grating to you. It's like, why are they so mean? Why do they always think the worst? Or why, and then you realize, I used to be just like that. I have changed. And so he says we should recall not only what we need to work on, but we should recall and continually recollect the progress that we're making. This is what encourages us on the path. And so, sometimes this sounds like just pragmatic, practical talk. Sometimes it sounds like, just sort of like psychological talk. Sometimes it sounds like spiritual talk. And it's all of those things and none of those things. It's just how we choose to talk about it at any given time, or how we choose to relate to it at any given time, and relating to it in the way that has the most meaning and the most impact for you. And so for one person, that could be from a purely psychological perspective. For another person, that can be from a purely spiritual perspective. From another person, it could be like totally in the realm of devotion. For another person who thinks devotion is stupid, it could be, so what I'm saying is nobody should begrudge anybody in how they make their progress. The key thing is making the progress. One time they came and the news people showed up at our door, and they wanted us to comment on the fact that there was a motion up before the city council to make them stop having prayer at the beginning of the meeting. And so some of the Jewish people were upset because they were making a prayer and they were ending it in Jesus' name. And so they wanted to know what we wanted us to wait. I'm like, what do we have to do with that? You haven't come and asked me anything about Buddhism. I mean, why do you want me to come get in the Christian and the Jewish? Like, no. So we just said, we think it's a good idea. Matter of fact, they should pray more if it's helping them, And so, I mean, I don't think they even add that, because that wasn't what they were after. It wasn't what they were looking for, you see. But, not begrudging anybody using any method that is useful and beneficial for them achieving their goals. So these 31 planes of existence, and other sages have broken it down in a different way. So some might call it 5 stages, and some call it 3, and some call it 45, and the Buddha just happened to break it down into 35. But they are what they are. And they are real destinations. And then he spoke of where he was before he made an appearance into this world, and where his mother went, and that he went and he ministered to her there for 3 months. But there is a important aspect that he ultimately gets to, and that is that the world of the Buddhas, or Buddha land, or Buddhahood, or enlightenment, is found within the reality of our own lives. That means in the other 9 worlds, not somewhere separate. And that's the important thing, because if it was somewhere separate, how could we possibly get there? So he says it is right here, but it's obscured. We're not able to see it. So we're not trying to get anything. We're not trying to get anywhere. We're just unpacking the obscurations. We're just peeling back the layers to see that we are already enlightened, to see that there really is nowhere to go. I won't say there's nothing to do, but I will say, really, truly, there is nowhere to go. Buddha land is right within these other 9 worlds for the one who has eyes to see. So I want to give a brief explanation of the 10 worlds in the sense not of physical destinations today, which is rare for me, but in the sense of conditions, mental conditions, states that we are in. And he says that we can choose any one of these 10 at any time. And the first is the hell realm, the world of hell. And it indicates a condition where there is constant misery and suffering, devoid of all freedom, where anger and rage become a source of constant self-destruction. So sometimes we choose to respond in a certain way that drops us right into the hell realm. And I don't care what anybody says to try to make you feel better about the situation. This is your story. I'm sticking to it. And you don't even know how to reason with someone. They see it so different than what it is. You just have to leave them with that. And when a person starts to recognize that I am creating hell at this moment for myself, because the one who is wise won't stay there with you. They'll just leave you with that if you want to be there. And when you decide that you don't, then you put forth the effort. If it's no more than to just go and sit down somewhere instead of pacing back and forth like a cage lion, ready to pounce, yelling up and down the courtyard, stuff like that. So we choose whether we'll be in a hell realm or not. The second is the world of hunger. And it's a condition governed by an endless desire for things, for food, for profit, for pleasure, for power, for recognition, for fame. It's having something and always craving something else, wanting something else, needing something else. And if I had to choose a condition for at least the United States, I won't say the world because it's not, but for the United States, this is a country full of hungry ghosts. Just this constant hunger and need for something. Then there's the world of animality, if that's a word. Animal realm. It's a condition driven by instinct. And instinct and intuition are two different things. Because instinct is based on survival. Survival of the fittest. Feeling like you have to always be watching, and it is characterized by a lack of integrity, inner integrity, inability to control oneself. In this condition, it's like the law of the jungle. It's something like that. So it causes us to quiver in the face of who we consider strong, and we have to come up with ways to thwart or to overcome or to circumvent. It's appearing to be in agreement with, but quietly or secretly despising them. And it causes one to prey then upon those who are weaker than them. The same way that they feel put upon by those that they perceive as stronger than them. And this is this animal world and the law of the jungle. Then he said there's a state or a condition that is the world of animosity, and it's characterized by aggressiveness. Persistent, though it's not necessarily a overt aggressiveness. It's like passive aggressive, So you can see a person who appears to not be leaning into you at all, but you can feel the press. That there's this kind of subtle aggressiveness, and that condition actually is dominated by ego. I'm so sorry. It's outside. That's okay then. It's driven by a need to be superior to others or to surpass them, at any cost. And so one in this condition may feign, politeness and even flatter others, but secretly despising and feeling like whatever they do, I can do better, and seeking to do that one-upmanship. Now, the reason why I'm laying all of these out is because the one who is wise knows the 10 conditions. And so it's going to be very difficult to fool people when you come into a place and they're practiced and they're developed and they're watchful over their own emotional states and mental states. And when they know their mental states, because, everybody's been in all of these. I've been in the hell realm, might be there tomorrow for a minute. I've been in, the animal realm, been in the realm of the hungry ghost. So it's by knowing it, by recognizing it in yourself, you can recognize it. If you have poop on a stick, you can recognize it. Whether it's your stick, somebody else's stick, poop is poop. And so it gets like that. And so you can recognize it. It's not to say, aha, so I know something, but it's like you just know, and by direct experience, because you know yourself when you touch these states. So this is not an indictment against others. You understand what I mean? This is really awareness, so that one can reflect and come to know. We do some of these things when we're sitting. In meditation, there's many, many, many different types of meditation. And some is just reflecting to know one's own states. Or when they have heard about something like, I didn't even realize that was me, but I do that. And so it's in these ways that we get to know ourselves. And to know ourselves is to know others. And so there's the world that we call like the human state, where one tries to control one's desires and impulses with reason, or like this reasoning kind of state. This is what separates us from the animals, because we reason and they work by instinct. But you observe animals for a while, and I would swear they have a reasoning capability, Animals can be smart from ants on. I don't think that's just instinct. But we really do pride ourselves, on our intellectualism, because we haven't realized that the sense gates can give us faulty information because of perceptions that we have that color what we see, or that color what we hear, or that color how we think about a thing. So we take this kind of intellect as as being a king, and so we try to control our desires and our impulses with reasoning, and we try to act in harmony with our surroundings, and we aspire for even a higher state of life than this. Then he describes the world of rapture, or the world, and it's sometimes called the world of heaven, when he talks about us abiding in the heavenly realms and the Brahma Viharas, imbued with metta, or loving kindness, being imbued with compassion, or sympathetic joy, altruistic joy, joy in the successes of others, or in just equanimity, a place of peacefulness when others are losing their heads all around you. Can you just keep your own head? And so this is a joy that one feels when we are released from suffering, or released from, or we have some satisfaction of some desire, if it's just a desire to dwell peacefully, with others, or it's a desire to accomplish something that will help others, or even to accomplish something that will help oneself, because there's nothing wrong with that. And so these 6 worlds that I've just talked about, which would be like the hell realm, the hungry ghost realm, animal realm, the world of animosity, and the world of reason, and the sixth being the world of rapture. These are called the six paths. And being in these six paths, we are largely controlled by, the restrictions of our surroundings, and therefore we're extremely vulnerable to changing conditions. Now, the remaining four states, these transcend these the uncertainty, I'll say, of 6 months. So let's say you can go to a place and you plan for there to be harmony and there's bickering and so forth. Then, it just impacted your mental state. And so you can be changed, or you get thrown off course, or you got off of your good intention, but the good intention was there, but because of the external changing condition, you couldn't always hold it and stay on your mark, And so when we understand that, then we're not so harsh with ourselves, and we're not so intolerant of others. We know, like, hey, this is the way of the world. But then he starts to talk about the seventh world, and that is the world of learning. And in this state, one dedicates oneself to creating a better life through both self-reformation and self-development. So we're trying to reform ourselves, constantly giving ourselves over to learning, constantly wanting to know how to improve, constantly interested in hearing something that we could use to improve, to do better, to find a way of escape for our habitual tendencies, our habitual ways of looking at things, our habitual ways of responding, our habitual ways of acting. And so we go through this period of like having a voracious appetite to hear something that we can chew on, that we can assess, that we can learn from, that we can increase our own self-development. And in this condition, we're not so interested in others, like what they do, but we're really, really interested in how can I use this to perfect myself. And this is the beginning of a turning, because all up until this point, our focus is outward and how you impact me, how you make me feel, what you did to me, what you said that bothered me, but now it's starting to turn, and there is an inward focus when we are entering this realm of learning, of how can I use this moment to learn something, to recognize something, so that in the future I won't respond the way I have in the past. Sometimes somebody will say about another person, that's my learning tool right there. That's who I'm going to learn for. That is that space that we're now deciding we're not going to use. We're going to use this uncomfortable circumstance for our growth, for our development. So we have to know that we're shifting. We're shifting a lineage, so to speak, when that kind of thought is what comes up, instead of look at what they did or what they said. That's going to be the point of my practice right there. Like, I'm ready for this. I'm allowing it to be. And that's the kind of mind that starts to arise. And then when we see something continually, we're looking at it from the vantage point of what can I get out of this? How learning that I can hold my peace, or learning that I can forgive what was said yesterday, because that, even if in the beginning you say, because that just didn't even come out of I mean, it didn't even make sense. It didn't even come out of a sane mind. You might be there you start with it, but after all, you just stay there and you get to the place that you go so far that you say, what could I have done that wouldn't make that person feel that they're being challenged in that way? How could I change the way I speak? Or how could I change, something that I'm doing that I don't give the impression maybe that I'm coming at them in a way that is not my intention. And so we sort of like roll, that's that space of rolling all blames into one. You see, we're not taking the blame for anything, but we're learning how to like not ascribe blame to anyone else. We just look at this and say, how could I do things better? And it's a whole different experience. It's a whole different mental state. Now I'm not even reasoning. I'm not reasoning like, why did this happen? How did it happen? That's done with. It doesn't matter why or how. It's how can I, going forward, what can I say? What can I do? Forgetting about what's past. No, but going forward, how can I check my approach, so that I come across as being, open, if I really am open. I'm not talking about faking it till you make it. I mean, but if I really have that desire, was really trying to be open, but was unskillful in it, how can I get better at it? You see, and so this is the world of learning. And from the world of learning, we access the world of realization. Now, the world of realization requires a couple of things. And one is that we actually can perceive the impermanence of everything. So if we really could perceive the impermanence of everything, things would not keep coming back up for us again, again and again. Just keep coming back up. You thought you dealt with it, coming back up. But when we really start to grasp the nature of all phenomena as empty and as impermanent, then we know that the only way it's coming back up is that we are, by choice, even when we don't recognize it, because it's not like overt decision, but by habitual tendency, it is a choice that we keep holding what dredges up. So when the thought comes up and you say, like, I don't want to think that way anymore, I don't want to, that's done with, the only way then it can remain is if you keep looking at it. So we have to learn how to how to apply like the antidote, how to move the mind to something else. You can't like just stay with it and say, I don't want to think about it. You can't like just stay with it. You have to move the mind to something else. So that takes will. I'm willing. A lot of times we say we don't want to feel that way, but we're not willing to think anything else. And so I have to ask myself, am I really ready to put this down? Am I willing that when this comes up, this judgment or this view, am I willing to place my mind somewhere else? Or do I just stay there with it, saying, oh, hold me back, I don't want to think about it, but yet still thinking about it. And so this is where our training comes in. So the Buddha talks about meditation and he talks about effacement. And we think that so much is going to be accomplished, through meditation. But meditation goes in direct tandem with effacement. Effacement, the rubbing out of self. That's what effacement is, the rubbing out of self. And the self that we know is our habitual self. That's the self that we know. Actually, it's just this collection of tendencies is ourself. We could be new every moment if we weren't holding on to that's just who I am. That's the way I am. That's how I roll. No, if we could abandon that notion and not define ourselves in any way. bad or good. The one who considers themselves pious becomes sanctimonious and and totally egotistical, and they think like I'm like, not at all, but absolutely are, because they have embraced themselves and with this sense of being so pious or so holy or so perfect or so right or so smart or so, whatever name you want to drop in there for yourself. But if we could abandon being any way, characterizing ourselves in any way, latching on to it and then feeling like we have to live up to it. Like my master used to say to me all the time, she said, just be ordinary. Every time I got as much of the ordinary stuff as, common stuff as I want. I'm trying to get something that's uncommon. And she would constantly say, just be ordinary. She did so much that she had I guess she had about 500 nuns, and she disrobed all of them and said, just be ordinary. She said, a monk is one inwardly. You don't have to have a certain robe. Now, when she was my teacher, at that time, I was trying to be a nun. And so I left her because while she was disrobing, I wanted to suit up. I wanted to make that, I wanted to descend into that cloistered world, because I was suffering and I thought that would be my only path out of suffering. And she was no longer offering it. Matter of fact, she was disrobing everybody. So I left and I went somewhere where they would give me a robe. And I found that the people who gave me the robe, they were some of the, well, you can't judge everything by a robe. That's all I'll say. Yeah. And so and it's not to bring disrespect on the robe. What I'm simply saying is that we can't look at, we should not divide ourselves in a certain way, around who's more special or who's, closer to the Buddha, what. We should just be who we are, and we recognize that for some people they can make more progress if they walk this way in a cloistered path. Some people can make more progress if they don't. So we should know which is for us. It's like we can see this in the normal world. Some people are what's best for them is to have a partner. Now, coupling is so beautiful and it's so precious, and it's how they walk out their love and concern in the world. But some, like, one is not going to be enough, then they should not get married. And they can play the field and they can have 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. But don't say you commit to one if you can't commit to one. That's when it gets messed up. And then some, it'd just be better for them not to hook up at all. Because they bring suffering to others or they suffer themselves. So you just have to know to which estate you're called. To be single, to be married, to, have multiple partners. Y'all don't condemn anyone. It's just be in the right, get in the right line. And it's the same for whether we choose, to be monastic or lay or something in between. Just make sure you're in the right place for you. That's all, And so he talks about this world of realization, and whichever path we can be on within the broader path that helps us to perceive the impermanence of everything, and to see that nothing is of any inherent existence, but that everything comes into being through cause and condition. And when this and this come together, it produces something, that there's this, there's a catalyst. And if we left it as that, like I mixed, dynamite with gunpowder, lit and fire, and I got an explosion. So that's what, it's just dynamite, gunpowder, and explosion. And without those, wait a minute, it's dynamite, gunpowder, and fire. And without those three, I wouldn't have an explosion. I mean, they can all be in close proximity to each other, but when I put them all together, this is what I'll get. And if we understood that everything that is happening moment by moment is happening just that way, it's no personal vendetta, not really. That's this kind of illusory view that somebody has a vendetta against me, or say, this is how the mind of reasoning pieces together why that happened. You see, but actually it was just certain conditions coming together that produced, it produced something. And he said that if you kept it as simple, as basic as that, you'd be able to start again and again and again, fresh in every moment. And we wouldn't drag around our baggage for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And we wouldn't have the heavy hearts and the heavy minds that we have. So he says, look to that. Look to see the true impermanence of everything. Look to see that nothing is of any inherent existence. And it'll be easier and easier for us to drop the kinds of unsavory minds that put us in these 6 kinds of unfavorable mental realms or mental states. The 9th world is the world of the Bodhisattva, and it's a state of compassion in which one thinks constantly and works for the ease of others. And there's something about doing it, and attaining this condition of the Bodhisattva. It does not make us a special person. It is, it does not. The term Bodhisattva, Bodhi meaning awake, or and sattva or enlightenment, and sattva means one destined for, or destined to become, it's like that. So destined to become enlightened, or destined to awaken. That's all a bodhisattva is. And so that means you haven't become it yet. So there is nothing to like, there's no cause for feeling special because, I just work for the happiness of all other beings, or, I'm seeking my enlightenment, for all beings, or, this is, I just do everything for others. It's like not thinking in that way at all, And it's actually recognizing that when you do for others, you actually do for yourself. Actually, you could think about it like that. Everything you do, even the good you do for other people, you actually do it for yourself, because that's your merit. So it's no point in bragging about it to somebody else, because it's whatever I do, that's my merit, even if it benefits somebody else. So no need to even talk about it, because still, in a certain way, to talk about it is to bring self to a position of prominence. That is an erroneous way of thinking about oneself. You understand what I mean? And so, so it's, the Buddha said that our ego is only uprooted at the stage of an arhat. So until you're right there, crossing the threshold, crossing the finish, it's like you're not done till you're done. And all the way up until that point, there's going to be the ego there. So to think that we have abandoned all ego is to be deluded. We actually absolutely have not, And so we just stay mindful of this, but the condition of the bodhisattva produces in the mind an awareness that the way to self-perfection is through altruism. That's a definite knowing that the bodhisattva has. So that's why one talks about selfless services, because they know, that this is the way. And they start carving out more time in their life to offer service to others, to be there for others, because they can see more clearly, that altruism is a way to self-perfection. In the Lotus Sutra, Bodhisattva Maitreya says to those who overcome in the worldly life, they have ably learned the Bodhisattva way and are as untainted with worldly things as the lotus flower that rises out of the muddy water. So that means they're not out of the world. They're in the world. They're down deep in it, so they have every bit of as much an opportunity to suffer as everybody else. And not above, it's not like we click our heels 3 times and we have a happy life and, we constantly hit the jackpot and, things, all of these good things are constantly happy. No, we still have, all of the vicissitudes of life that everybody else has. It's just that in spite of it, there is something, some view in the eye that surpasses the level of suffering that can be incurred in things. So we have to go through the same things. We don't get a pass, but because we can see, and because we inherit the joy that comes with altruism, we have enough joy that covers all the dastardly things that happen. And a lot happen. The thing is if, the closer, or the more I'd say you start to wake up. Here's the downside about waking up and waking up fast, is that all of the other things like the negative karma, that has to come ripen. And faster it comes. It's like one thing after another. It's not stretched out over 10 years or 50 years. It's all happening this week. And I'm let it come. That's one more thing burned up, one more thing neutralized, one more thing consumed. And that's how you approach it. It's just one more in the day in the life of Pannavati, and you just handle it like that, and you keep going on, and then this moment or this feeling could last as long as she wants it to last. She can carry it all day, or she can carry it 1 minute, or as soon as the thought arose, hey, Pannavati, this is suffering. I'm saying, sure, you're right. And then that's it. Now we move on to something else. And so it's training ourselves to do that way. But who is it that trains? We. And who do we train? Ourselves. You got to have those 2 components going on in there. And if we don't, we suffer. So there's the willingness to abandon, to give up our beef, our complaint. If we really want to be free, if not in this moment, then in the next moment. And so the 10th world, the Buddha land, that's the state of complete access to boundless wisdom, compassion, and courage throughout the 10 times. No longer bound by even time and space. No longer bound by it's the word, I'm always making up words. By phenomenology, is that a word? No longer being bound by form, being in this place, can appear in this place and appear in another place, can be bilocal. He said one can become many, many can become one. There's so many capabilities, capacities that are available to us when we stop rolling around in the basement, as I said the other day, as we start our ascent. I saw a book that I'm going to get, and I'm sorry I don't know the name of it. I don't even know if the book is worth reading, but I'm going to buy it and read it, because this is a person who she had an accident. She was dead for I think it was 45 minutes, and she had some kind of experience during that time. And she said, when I was alive, I had 6 senses. She said, when I died, I had 500. More than just seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, and thinking. She said she accessed, and so I want to get the book to see what all she accessed and how she could put it into a language that we can understand. But that is the promise, and there are some who have accessed these additional faculties, these capacities to know and to interact with the world. It helps us to be better at whatever level we're on, And so, but we notice that we touch this state, or get in the vicinity of it from one of these 9 worlds. Every higher world is accessed from the world we're in. Every higher state is accessed from the state we're in, And so in this way, we don't have to despise whatever state we're in. We just can know that can be a springboard to the next state. If we don't like that state, then this is the practice of employing the methods that allow us to piggyback from the state we're in to the next state. When I get tired of rolling around in hell, like I don't have to actually be in hell where my feet are to the fire, even being a hungry ghost, even craving is better than that. But I don't have to be a hungry ghost. Even like having some survival instincts is better than that. But I don't have to function by survival. I can use the capacity of reasoning to make some changes. I don't even have to have the reasoning. I can have the direct experience of rapture to know when I drop it, I experience this. I experienced this release. You don't have to give me the reason. You don't have to tell me about neuroplasticity. You don't have to tell me about all of that. If I can just drop it, I find that I'm happier when I let it go. Happier when I think the best about you. Happier when, even if you're not the best, if I think the best, I'm in a happy world. You might not be, but I'm in a happy land. And so it's like this. Don't think that the Buddha land is a place so far off. It's right here. Wherever you are, it is there. So, the bottom line is that the world in which we live has to be purified and made peaceful through our own efforts as dwellers in this Saha world. And the word Saha means to endure. So we have to develop an enduring quality, the quality to endure. That's what it takes to make it in this world. to endure, we realize our happiness through our own efforts, through enduring, through overcoming. It's what I like about the Dharma, because it gives me hope, that I don't have to depend on somebody else for my salvation. That I don't have to depend on someone else for my enlightenment. I don't have to depend on someone else for my freedom. I learned that I can depend on myself. I can put forth the effort and realize true peace. And we might know this intellectually, but intellectual knowing does not cut it. No. But when we have a taste of it here and there, and to go back and reflect on how did that arise for us? Ruth. She touched Ruth for me. How did that arise for us? If we go back and reflect and realize how it arose for us, then we can duplicate it. And that's why we've been working on changing our state. The Buddha said when you sit down and meditate, he said, first you have to lay aside all any sense of humiliation, any sense of disgust, any sense of offense for the world. Anything anyone has said to you, done to you, or you perceive they're saying or doing. Anything that has happened to you, let's talk about life's not fair. He said all of that you have to be willing to lay it down if you want to experience a different state of mind. Now this doesn't take reasoning, it takes just a willingness to lay it down. You can pick it up later if you want to. If this didn't work for you, didn't make you feel any better, and if hating on somebody made you feel better, then pick that back up when you finish. But he said try this. Just being willing to forgive a fault. Just being willing to forgive oneself when you know you didn't come up to your own expectation. Learn to love oneself. It's the greatest, it's the most important thing that you can do. Because you truly cannot give anybody what you don't possess. But when you know that you can forgive yourself, then you know that you have the capacity to forgive others. When you can overlook your own fault, yes, I see that, and I need to work on that. I will work on that. This is how I'll do it. I'll try when I feel that rising up. I know I'm losing control. Instead of just leaning into it, I'm going to stop right then. When I start talking about somebody, but then some little thing comes up into my mind and I remember something that I think they said, and then so I use this as an opportunity to interject just one little kind of not really negative thing about them, but just one little on the fence thing, then my whole intention has shifted right then, right there. Just stop. Walk away. I remember when it came to me I think for a solid 2 or 3 months, when I realized that I was gossiping, when it shifted from just sharing information or whatever to really becoming a gossip thing, not something we need to get some idea on how to approach or how to make it, and going to somebody in confidence, but I mean just really trying to gossip or talk about somebody. We know the difference, then I have to say, I'm sorry, I'm gossiping. How many times you want to say that? It'll help you if you say it. If you lie a little bit and you say, I'm lying. I mean, how many times are you going to say that? I mean, but learning how to be really honest with ourselves in that way, and take it the easiest way you can do it. Just notice. And stop yourself when you can. Stop yourself. It's right on the tip of your tongue before you say it. But if you've already started saying it when you realize, stop right there. Just end the conversation. If you've already said it before you realize it, just reflect. And vow to do better. And then you keep going in that way. It'll come sooner and sooner and sooner. And hindsight will become foresight, will become insight. So right now, just as we're closing, he said that once you lay aside grief and covetousness for the world, lay aside this impression, this notion that the world is too much for us, that we can't handle it. Once we're thoroughly convinced that we can handle anything that comes in our day, he said, then imbue the mind with loving kindness. Loving kindness is just loving, being kind. That's all. Some of us haven't had a lot of experience in that. I mean, like it just wasn't a thing in our household. A kindness thing, like we didn't have it, So we're not that practiced at it. We're not even sure it'll work. We have to put it to the test. Just developing, loving, being kind. That's all it is. Choosing to be kind. And he said, and when we are filling with kindness, that when we get to overflowing, it becomes compassion. We start to recognize a person suffering when they do that thing. A person is suffering when they say that thing. A person is suffering. We start to see that suffering more than we see their infraction. That's what will arise for you. And sometimes we have the skillfulness to address it and neutralize it. Sometimes we don't have the skillfulness. But just to recognize that they are suffering is the beginning. And then when that's full to overflowing, this altruistic kind of joy emerges. Like you're always wishing for their happiness. That they never be separated from their happiness. Instead of she got what she deserved. We're always hoping that they don't get what, that there's something in their life, some merit that neutralizes that, or someone just didn't even consider it a fault. So they got a get out of jail free card. But not that everybody gets what they deserve. It's so mean-spirited, And when that's full to overflowing, that kind of mental state, he said, then equanimity comes. You see, you can't have equanimity until you fulfill the conditions for equanimity. Otherwise, it's just indifference. It's not equanimity. Equanimity is full of something. It's pregnant with kindness and compassion and altruism. That's why you can just, be with whatever's happening. Because all the kindness you can muster up is there. The appreciation is there. Nothing else you can do. And now you can be at ease, whichever way it turns out, because you have offered to the situation everything that was in you. And so we say, I'm sorry. What's the next one? Please. What's the next one? Thank you. And we end with, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please special words given to us all. These are the precious words. They're available to us all. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Are the precious words. They're available to us all. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you.